Who Watches the Rewatchers, a Buffy rewatch podcast.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches the Rewatchers, our rewatch podcast where we go through and look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer and rewatch it. I don't know if anyone's watching us right now, Alan, but I hope they're listening. I'm Jarrod Longbonds. I'm always with my friend Alan. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing outstanding. It's a gorgeous day. The weather has finally shifted. We're recording this in late September, and it's the first day I've walked outside where I didn't feel like I was getting beat up by 90-some-odd degree weather.
Yeah, my family's already decorated for Halloween. Every year on the 13th of September, which is Ruby's, my second daughter's birthday, that's what she wants to do. So now I have to go today and redo it all in the yard because the kids do it, so I got to make it look good. But We're ready for it. We are here for it. I noticed that when we watched the most recent episode that we're going to talk about today, which is called Out of Mind, Out of Sight, and I noticed that we're getting near the end of this first season.
Yes.
And as we are, as I'm rewatching this, I'm realizing, the Master really isn't in all the episodes or even most of the episodes.
Right, just two or three.
Yeah, so my big bad is in there here and there, so they're still definitely working out the formula. And I think this is another one where they're working out that formula and trying to bring the Monster of the Week sort of episode into connection with the bigger mythologies by introducing more Angel here and there and trying to weave things together.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get to that Angel scene because that was fairly interesting in the way that they're going to make things work in the future.
I want to point out that this one was an interesting episode, I think, out of the gate, because I called it a Monster of the Week episode, a la X-Files, but I don't believe there's a monster that is guiding the drama of the show.
Right. I mean,
it's not magical.
It's not magical, but I feel like that's part of the X-Files thing anyways, because a lot of the monsters were pseudoscientific as opposed to being magical, and then every once in a while they would have a magical thing, and so this is kind of the reverse, where it's mostly magical with the every once in a while pseudoscience.
I've often wondered, in the world that we have post-enlightenment, we call it disenchantment.
Right.
I've often wondered why we just replace one form of enchantment for another. So whether it's magic or the gods, and now you can easily turn on the History Channel and find the explanation for a lot of these mysterious things is the aliens.
Aliens, right, sure.
Like you're just moving your enchantment from one thing to the next, and we're acting like it's somehow pseudoscientific or something else. But Howard's, just because you understand something of physics doesn't mean that you are devoid of enchantment, I would suggest. Or should be.
I have this line of cryptid merchandise. You're drinking a cup from...
Yes, the cryptid collection.
And I was really surprised recently to discover that a lot of cryptids that I always just assumed were, believed to be, like Bigfoot. It's just an ape man that we're not able to find easily, or the Loch Ness Monster is like a dinosaur that's remained from, whatever time or whatever. I was really interested to find out recently that a lot of people assign a lot of mystic and spiritual and alien capabilities to these things.
Yes. Interdimensional travelers, alien species.
Right.
And then, of course, all you have to do is do a little bit of research now into ufology and science and legitimate thinkers. And they'll say things like, of course, unidentified aerial phenomena, that's the new name for UFO.
Sure.
Of course, those are real. The government announces those are real. But certainly, there is no such thing as an extraterrestrial. How silly of us. These must be interdimensional humans, or us having figured out how to go back in time.
Right.
Obviously. And it's just like, it's hilarious to me how you just keep moving the goal markers on what is plausible and implausible. Anyway.
No, I agree with you. I can't wait for us to start talking about how Jesus is an alien. That'll be fun.
Well, he's already gone through the zombie phase after Walking Dead. So.
That's right.
Well, here we are. We're looking at episode number 11 of season 1, Out of Mind, Out of Sight, intentionally flipping around the Out of Sight, Out of Mind, moniker.
That's exactly right.
And here we have a lovely day in Sunnydale High. Well, how does this start off? We get to meet Harmony, who comes back later.
Yes. Is this the first Harmony episode? No. I think we saw her talking earlier, but we didn't get a name.
Yes.
I think this is the first time she's named.
She's starting to get lines. So Cordelia and Harmony are hanging out with, I guess, a boyfriend he's the red shirt of the week, right? The new guy. They're talking about spring fashion and the May Queen competition.
Right.
Because, of course, Cordelia's going to be that. She's probably wasn't she asking people to vote for her?
Yes, she was.
She's giving out chocolate money with.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then Buffy enters and she trips.
Yes, and then out of her bag. That's right. Out of her bag falls a mace. It's not a very heavy mace.
Right.
It's like a bag full of weapons.
Right.
And I love it because it's ridiculous. It's funny. And of course, she says she's doing a report. And Cordelia's like, she's always hanging out with that weird librarian.
Yeah.
Like that's the, no worries there. She's got a mace and stakes and probably a crossbow or two. Who knows? But yeah, that was a funny gag. That was really good.
And I loved it. I loved the way Buffy tried to defend it as though like she had to make an explanation for this as opposed to just cleaning it up and keep
right.
it.
Yeah. Now you noticed that in the we were talking Shakespeare a little bit earlier, you and I, but to notice that Cordelia is in English class. They're doing The Merchant of Venice.
Right.
Which I'm not sure if you're really familiar with. It's not something that I studied a lot, but I do know there's a lot of anti-Semitic sort of things going on there.
Yeah.
Shylock and
that's exactly right. And I think that they're trying to draw an illusion between Shylock, who is annoyed. Annoyed is a terrible word for what I'm trying to express. He's angry.
Yes, angry
that people treat him like a nobody
because he's Jewish.
And so in this episode, we're going to meet an antagonist who is angry because she's treated like a nobody.
Very fascinatingly, during the time of like Oliver Cromwell and Britain and the Civil Wars and the dethronement of the king and the beginning of the Republic, Jews were expelled from England, and then there was an invitation back to Jewish people so that they can convert them, of course.
Right.
But there's all this going on in the ether of Shakespearean verse here, and yeah, it's an outsider character who is morally outraged and also justifies vengeance and violence, right?
Right.
And so I think you're exactly right, but I did want to kind of give a little attention to the character. Now he's a moneylender, which is why the mafia talks about Shylocks. That's his character's name. Anyway, that's just fun.
No. Not meaning to totally geek out about Shakespeare, but I will mention this very quickly that when the Jews were invited back into Europe,
yes,
they weren't allowed to have regular jobs. So many of them turned to money lending as a way to make a living, and that's why.
Which was also thought to be a lesser sort of thing.
That's exactly.
And there's all kinds of terrible conspiracy theories now, but we're not going to get into that.
All right, good.
Because we're going to go to the best place, the boys' locker room.
Boys' locker room, so we can see this dude get beat up.
Yes. This happened several times in the first season.
Yeah, it's
some locker room beatdowns.
But locker room beatdowns do seem to be a theme that we're going to see throughout, I think, the first 3 years of Buffy.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't remember that, but there he is. He's changing his shirt, and then there's a floating baseball bat. He's a ball player. It's springtime, after all. And so he gets beaten up, and that was kind of, I thought, not to throw too much shade at the 1990s graphics, it was a little funny looking.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think that I am actually really impressed with about Buffy, from a technical standpoint, is that the entire first season was shot on 16 millimeter film. So the reason that it was shot that way is because they couldn't afford nicer camera work. And the only reason it looks as good as it does is because of extreme competency on the part of the camera and lighting people. But it's the kind of thing that at that point in time, well, actually a little bit earlier. So a pre-VHS, so maybe a decade earlier than this, 15 years earlier than this, that was the only way you could shoot like home movies and stuff. It was either 8 mil or 16 mil. And
has on grainier and
yes. And so they're basically shooting this with the equivalent of home movie apparatus.
That is good. I mean, yeah, it just, when you look back on any former technology, it's always a little funny.
Totally.
Well, the Principal Snyder's there, and he's a little less than Principal Snyder, but showing some incompetence, and it just allows for a little distraction for Willow and Xander there to help Buffy slip into the boys' locker room, and then she's doing her investigation. Like there's no police, there's no janitors, it's just like left open, and there's painted on across several lockers the word "look."
Right.
Very ominously, look, and you wonder what look at what. But
right.
That's just a teaser at this point. Now, of course, what do? You go have lunch. They're having lunch, talking about what this could be, and now this is starting to be kind of a thing that I think is slightly charming about the show is they get to like hang out in high school spaces theorizing about these mysteries. So they're in the lunchroom cafeteria talking about well, maybe it's a ghost.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this. Maybe it's
Right,
that.
sure.
You know? These are the conversations that I wish I could have had in high school, as opposed to the ones I did have.
Give me an example of a conversation you had in high school that you would have preferred to have been about a ghost.
Well, I would have preferred to talk to people at my lunch table. What is cooler, vampires or zombies?
Sure.
Rather than talking about Lord knows whatever else we were talking about.
Sure.
You know. But probably I thought I was too cool when the kids were talking about such things. But secretly, I would have wished I were just more accepting of my nerdness.
One of the bits in this conversation they have at the lunch table that I was amused by was Xander wants to be the one who's going out and hitting the streets to ask people questions instead of being forced into
Giles
research
Yeah.
boy again. And then he finds out that one of the people he's going to have to question is Cordelia, and he changes his mind. It's time to hit the books instead.
Yeah, very funny. Very funny.
Yes.
I like that Cordelia tells Harmony that Mitch is better but still too bruised for prom pictures.
Yeah.
That's what she's focused on.
You know, I was thinking about this when I was watching the episode, that one of the most interesting things about Cordelia is she says the most outlandish things that are things that no one would ever deem acceptable then or now. And she's so charming as an actress that you buy that she's going to say this stuff.
Yes. And it makes for later on when she starts to show more layers, it makes it really nice to see when she has some layers.
Yeah.
But as they're walking, and this is, here, I'm a kid from the Midwest. This is when you watch TV and you're like, man, what high schools are like these? That they have outdoor hallways, but and stairs, like outdoor stairs. Well, Harmony, Cordelia, they're walking, talking, doing all the gossip, and then all of a sudden, I thought it was very effective. She gets yanked. Harmony gets yanked down the stairs, and it's like someone put a crook around her neck. She didn't know. She just jerked back.
Sure.
And she goes rolling down. Of course, Snyder's there to witness this, and other people are. And it's something's now. Whoever was wielding the bat has now thrown Harmony, or grabbed Harmony, and tossed her down the stairs.
Right.
Poor Harmony.
And brushes past Buffy, which is the first hint that it's not a ghost.
And Buffy notices it and turns her attention away from Harmony, which is where everyone else is. And she sees a door open and close, and I think she even hears a giggle.
That's right.
Here's a giggle. Yeah. That's right.
And when she goes looking for said ghost, she hears ominous flute playing.
Yes, ominous flute playing. She's going through the school looking for it, and I believe she ends up in one of those sort of Nightmare on Elm Street, basements, whatever they're called. What rooms do they call those? That's where Freddy.
Boiler room.
The boiler room. It's down there, and there's a record playing. A wax record, right?
Right.
And it's a trap. So that's what's going on, and
There's a really interesting shot right after this. I want to make sure.
yeah, you go on. You take it.
No. It's a throwaway shot. Like we're hearing the Scoobies talk about trying to figure out what's going on, and in the background, there's a shot of these two men in black.
Oh yeah.
Walking around the school.
Yeah.
And like they don't talk about it. They don't show anything about them. But they're clearly there trying to find something.
Unfortunately, it was 2 nights ago that I got to watch it, not last night.
Yeah, sure.
And I even said, "Oh, that's the Mulder and Scully."
Yeah.
It's
Right.
two dudes, but I was gonna tell you I thought that. So thank you for reminding me. Yeah. So Buffy goes to the sound of the flute, and Giles, on the other hand, while she's there finding the record player, Giles runs into Angel, right? Who now, I think this is the first moment where he's like, okay, so you're a vampire,
Right.
but you don't kill that many people these days, and there's some like awkward,
Yes.
whatever you want to call that.
Giles is clearly nervous because he's in the presence of a vampire, but also knows he's not supposed to be because Angel is a good guy.
Good guy now. He's got his gypsy soul. He offers to bring Giles this book of prophecies called the Pergamum Codex. It's not, and Giles it's been lost. It was so cool. It's like, it's been lost for so long. We have records, extant records of it, but not it. So he's I got it. It's like, I picked it up a couple centuries back, and Giles, that it endears him to him.
That's right.
Now we're entering some more lore that Giles is going to learn about.
That's right. Prophecies about the Slayer. When we get in further seasons, I need to tell you about. Do you know about Frey?
Well, I don't know what Frey.
Frey, the Vampire Slayer comic book, Joss Whedon wrote, set in the far future.
No, I didn't go that far.
It happened. He made it around season 5.
Okay.
And it actually forecasts what his original intention for the end of the show is, because it looks back to what happened with Buffy.
Oh.
And it's a completely other ending than what we got in the series.
And what we get in the comic books that follow the...
Yes.
Oh.
And I only bring it up because...
You must say more later.
Because this episode's talking about prophecies about the Slayer, and this is one of them.
Oh. Okay.
So we'll talk about that.
Pergamum Codex. Very cool. Okay, now we got a flashback scene for Cordelia and Harmony are in the bathroom talking, and here's where you start to learn about this other student that's been around the whole time.
Yes.
Her name's Marcy, played by Clea. I think it's pronounced Clea Duvall. I bring up her name because around that time, I started seeing this actress in a lot of shows like The Faculty. She ended up being in one of my favorite, believe it or not, one of my all-time favorite movies is Zodiac.
Okay, yeah, sure, of course.
I think it's so well done.
Absolutely.
And she plays a small part in it, but wherever she plays a role, I believe her 100% she's that person. So she plays some rougher characters, and I believe she's really a rough person. Probably not, but she's really effective at it.
Totally.
She's really young here, and she's playing this kid who's in the bathroom trying to talk about what Cordelia and Harmony are talking about, and they're completely blowing her off.
Yes.
And then one of them says what Marcy said, as if she didn't say it, like she just by osmosis heard her and then made it her own opinion. Cordelia made it her opinion or whatever. It's just insult to injury.
Right. She says, "Did you see his toupee?"
Yeah.
And then Harmony says, "We're talking here."
Yeah.
And then Cordy says, "Did you see his toupee?"
It looked like, whatever it was. Yeah, that's totally rude.
Yeah.
So this is happening because, they're looking over, Willow's looking over a list of missing students. And we start to find out more. Like, things are coming to a head with the music being played and Buffy's finding it. But this is one kid who's a missing student. And we start to kind of figure out that this kid is absolutely an overlooked kid. They start to find out because they look at yearbooks.
Right.
And she's got which I found this to be very charming. Oh, it's the have a nice summer. And Giles is like, what's wrong with that? Like, that is the signature of death in a yearbook. It means we have nothing interesting to say about you.
Right.
And Willow said, have a awesome summer, like a better version of it. And they were all feeling ashamed, right? And then there's also a flashback to Marcy being in the class. From earlier in the day, and she kept raising her hand. The teacher kept not calling on her.
Right.
And then something happens where you start to see part of her fingers disappear.
That's right.
This is coming in the part of the episode where Giles is figuring out, oh, this isn't magic. This is physics.
Right.
And I assume that what he's drawing on, what this show is drawing on, is just kind of a soft understanding of certain physical things that we know to be true, that things that you observe they change in the way they behave because of their being observed.
That's exactly
the most famous. I can't remember the name of the laws or principles now, but the very famous is light. The way we observe light. Looking through slats, it's a ray, or looking through this way, it looks like a particle. But the way you observe it changes it, which then those types of that type of learning has affected the way we do epistemology, right? That affected the way we think about what we know.
Okay.
Are we truly objective, and can we make objective observations about objective facts, or where we all know we're subjective, but does our subjective observation actually change things as they're being studied? And there's a more dynamic relationship between selves and the world, which means that maybe getting a grasp on what is true might be slippery, more difficult, a little bit less, possessible than we thought in a hyper-modernized, rationalized world. Is there any evidence that if you don't focus on anything long enough, it will, in effect, lose something of its beingness?
Right.
I don't think so.
No.
Right? But it is interesting to think socially about what's happening here.
Sure.
Kid perpetually overlooked and seen as invisible is going to feel that.
They did have a throwaway line about how this state is being fueled by the Hellmouth.
Yes, that was a throwaway line.
So.
And that was just one of the Scoobies surmising something more.
Right.
But it's clearly obviously that's the metaphor, right?
The metaphor
of the show. It's very, very clear. Mm-hmm. But I find it interesting that you can touch to certain things in the way we understand the physical world, and realize that the way we relate to things affects other things.
Totally.
We even know now about like the vagus nerve. People talk of the parasympathetic responses that we make to each other, and that we mirror each other. And there's a lot of things about how we interact that have effect in the world, and real effect on people with their own identity and personality. And of course, being unseen for anybody, or most people in some way, right? Being unseen is a painful experience.
Sure.
We are meant to be together by nature. That's how we are made to be, right?
Yes.
And I mean, I think this is it's a bombastic idea in a hyper-Western rationalist world.
Sure.
Where we tend to think about the human self after Descartes as, there's the internal seat of my soul or my identity inside of me. My body's kind of an extended mechanism.
Sure.
And we define the world from kind of me outward.
Right.
And you contrast that with a lot of kind of kinfolk sets of relations in terms of the anthropological understanding of the world from other people groups.
Sure.
Or a non-Western understanding of people.
Yep.
Most famously in South Africa, there's the Ubuntu philosophy that says basically, I am because of you. Like, It's not I am and then there's a you and then we come together and form community. It's more like because of the community I am.
Right.
So there's a social self.
Sure.
More than just the buttressed individual self. I know, getting too nerdy for probably this podcast.
No, not in any way.
But the point being, I mean, I think that the Western understanding of human nature is an illusion that we're told about how to be,
right? And
so we follow it, and I think it's deeply unhealthy, and I think it contradicts the way a lot of the ways that we are by nature,
right?
And by tradition, and
I agree with all of that,
and more healthy ways of being.
Sure. So,
yeah. Not going to fix that in an episode of TV show or a school counselor's not going to fix it. I think part of the lesson of the show is, see people, see each other, and more than just looking at them, see them.
Yeah, hear them.
Oh, look, listen, because remember, the ghost or the invisible girl is the one who wrote "look" on the lockers.
That's right.
And then later she writes what? Listen.
I believe so.
Listen. Yeah. So she's and then our learn was written, right?
Right.
Yes, because Cordelia has, that's at the very end. We'll get to learn. So we have look and then listen is painted somewhere. I can't even recall now. But when you start to find out that there's this girl that's being overlooked, you see that occurs at that same time.
So then we get into, I think, my favorite scene of the episode.
Yes.
Which is when Cordelia comes and asks for help.
Yeah, that's beautiful, actually.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Go on with it.
So Cordelia comes to the library and sees the Scoobies and Buffy talking, and she basically tries to ask for help, but in the process of asking for help, insults all of them as many times as she possibly can.
Right.
And then she says something to the effect, or Buffy says something to the effect of, "So you're asking me for help to try to straighten her out and get her on bum."
And you're here for my help?
yeah, exactly. And Cordelia says something like, "Yeah, because you're really strong and you have all those weapons. I was hoping you were in a gang."
I was hoping you were in a gang, right?
Right.
The only time you've ever hoped someone was in a gang.
And then we get to one of my absolute favorite lines from Cordelia. Buffy says, "I think it's a good idea for her to go forward with the May Queen thing or whatever. We'll use her as bait." And then Cordelia says, "Great. Bait." I think that's a wonderful quick.
Great bait. Oh yeah.
So anyway, they've now hatched their plan that they're going to use Cordelia as bait and try to trap their invisible girl that way.
Meanwhile, the rest of the Scoobies, Willow, Xander, and Giles are in that boiler room because Marcy's got them in there and she's locked them in. And she's now kind of. I mean, I guess this is where the madness comes first. Like they kind of present her at times as being really sweet and just overlooked, but she's gone pretty maniacal pretty quickly. She's turning to violence and murder.
Yes.
And so she's going to kill them in the boiler room.
Yeah, there's a long tradition of that with invisible characters.
Say more. Yeah, Invisible Man.
Yeah, so the theory is that if someone doesn't have to look at themselves, if someone doesn't have to be responsible for dealing with whatever the consequences of them being evil are, that they can do anything as evil as they can imagine. And that was definitely part of the theme of the original Invisible Man novel of the 19th century.
Yeah.
It was the theme for Picture of Dorian Gray, which isn't it isn't an invisible man idea, but it's the same idea where he never has to look at himself. He never has to see the consequences of his actions.
Which is why they focus on Angel and Giles together and not seeing Angel's reflection.
That's exactly.
And they comment on it. So that's a good connection. Good to see that. The gas gets turned on. Cordelia is kidnapped, but eventually, I just kind of cut through because it's the B story. In the boiler room, Angel ends up coming through there to deliver that funky old book.
Right.
And that's how he gets to save them, to get them out of their situation, because they're pretty hard up. But the darker things happening at the Bronze, which if you were to pause it, or just to keep your eye real quickly, no one's at the Bronze, and on the door it says something about fumigation.
Again.
Just on a little sign. It's like, okay, there we go. So fumigation's happening at the Bronze again, and there's going to be some scary-looking surgery to take place on Cordelia's face.
That's right.
Because apparently she's beautiful or cute or whatever, and that's all she loves, and so she's going to basically take that away from her. And that's all set up, and I thought as far as network television back then, that was pretty scary, actually.
Yeah.
Set it up.
Yeah, agreed.
And on the curtain behind which all this stuff's going to happen is the word learn is written. So we've got look, listen, and now learn. So you're going to learn. This is what you're going to learn. She's going to teach her a lesson about superficiality and overlooking people and not seeing them. So it's going to be gross. She's going to disfigure her face, and you see the scalpel that's in the air because you can't see her. And then Buffy starts to do her thing. She loosens herself. She kicks a tray. She gets up and she kind of attacks, goes into attack mode. My favorite scene is when she stands up and she can't see her villain. They have the production team found a nice way to blow enough wind, her hair to blow just gently enough, and she took on that kind of Zen sort of mindfulness, closed eyes, breathe out, to be aware of her surroundings. And I thought it really was. I thought it an effective piece of filmmaking to show like that, that kind of enlightened.
Representing the internal with the external is incredibly difficult, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I saw it, and I thought, man, I want some more of that. But that's how she calms herself to be present to fight the invisible foe. Right. See, in the boiler room, Angel rescues the Scoobies, and
So as soon as Buffy captures the invisible foe, our men in black arrive.
That's right. But I think what I was trying to was groping for my things. Didn't she throw a curtain over and hold it by a curtain? Yeah, that was cool.
Yes,
thought that was really cool.
Yeah, she knocked her into a curtain.
That's how she.
The curtain covers her, and now we're able to see her all the time because she's got this.
And then that's when the FBI come. They've been in black, the men in gray suits.
Yeah,
But it's kind of humorous too, because it's like Johnny come lately. They didn't do anything.
They didn't do anything other than take credit for Buffy's conquest.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So there we are. The next day, I guess we're back at school. Things are, wrapping up.
Yep. Back to normal.
And she's gonna say thanks to helping them, and they're surprised by it, right?
Yes.
But then her beaten up boyfriend shows up, and he starts mocking them in front of her, and she joins in. It's back to it. And
back to normal.
I thought that was also really true to life, that sometimes people only do the nasty stuff to each other socially because other people are.
I think that's actually part of the theme here, right? So she's invisible. Marcy's invisible because people don't observe her. Cordelia's evil because she's spurred to evil by the people around her. And she actually has a comment that I think helps you understand that that's what this scene is about earlier in the episode when she's talking to Buffy. And Buffy and she are chatting, and Cordelia says something like, hey, just because I'm this cute and popular, don't think that I'm never lonely.
Yeah.
And then Buffy says, well, if you're so lonely and if it's such an imposition, why do you work so hard to be popular? Yeah, and Cordelia says something to the effect of, because it's better to be lonely with other people than lonely alone.
Can't believe I forgot that, because that is the most poignant line delivered in the episode for that purpose. Yeah, so that's how she's handling it. Mm-hmm. Some people might handle it by becoming more of a loner. Mm-hmm. Some people might act out in violence. I mean, she acts out in her own sort of violence.
Sure.
But she surrounds herself with people even if they don't listen to her.
Right. Right.
And she says that they don't always listen to me. They're just there. They're hangers on or whatever they are.
Now, that's actually one of the best things about Buffy, in my opinion, is this idea that they're going to take a central, theme, a central motif or whatever, and then explore it in all the various ways that they can explore it through everyone's different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, that's what elevates Buffy to art, where a lot of other shows are not.
Yeah, I like that too. Good catch on that, on how to say that. Now, what ends up happening with Marcy is that she's taken to this FBI headquarter type place. I mean, you just know it's a government bureaucratic building. I don't think I saw FBI. Maybe there was, but she's in a classroom. It's kind of cool. They open the door, and the teacher is the only person that you can see in the room.
Right.
Who knows her? I guess she was expecting her.
Right.
But you see the chair move out, so she's sitting down in a chair. You see, and then she says, "Class, open your books." They all open their books, and it's a class full of invisible people.
Right.
And then they go to a chapter that's about assassination and infiltration.
Right.
And Marcy chuckles and says, "Cool," which is chilling.
Yes.
I mean, the mind that I have goes to, and how are you going to stop this new tool that you created?
Yeah, exactly.
But so, quite clearly, this is a state that can't be reversed, I guess, in terms of physics, according to the show.
Right.
And I think that's just mostly a tease, fun, a way to end the story.
Yeah.
But I think we've nailed that metaphor that they keep trying to draw on a lot. In a lot of ways, we are the monsters, right, in this episode.
Absolutely.
We are the monsters, and then monsters create more monsters, or as people say, hurt people. And that's what happens here with Marcy for sure. I actually like this episode.
Me too, man.
So we talk a lot, and here Vox ranked it number 80, so we're going higher out of a list of the 144.
Sure.
AV Club gave it a B, and Rolling Stone put it at 107 on their list ranked. But I liked it because I don't know, I liked I do like how they portrayed the Invisible Girl with her voiceovers. Mm-hmm. I thought that was good.
Yep.
I liked.
And I also like seeing through her eyes.
Yes, that's good. The POV shots. Yes. Yeah. Also, I do also like the slow burn of figuring out what it was. I thought that set it up kind of nice. They did a nice job of like folding it all in so you figure it out. Mm-hmm. When you figure it out, you're not like.
Yeah. The one of the nice things about this episode, to your point, is the mystery. The solving of the mystery was satisfying, unlike some previous episodes where the solving of the mystery is almost like a little throwaway bit.
Yeah.
Exploring the theme from a bunch of different perspectives was also satisfying because it was a theme I think everyone can relate to. Mm-hmm. Unlike maybe Don't Kill a Boy on the First Date. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That one is as
universal.
Yeah.
I do. Is there references to this in other episodes? I have to look that up, see if this is a callback.
I don't think so. That's actually the one thing that I was surprised by when I rewatched this one was I don't remember it really affecting any future episodes. I don't remember the Men in Black thing coming up again, even that much, which seems like it would be an obvious thing to do in some future.
According here to the continuity part of the Wikipedia, is that the prophecy girl episode does refer to that one codex.
Right. Sure.
So, and what you said.
Right.
And then I guess Willow wears a Scooby-Doo T-shirt, and there's references by their clothing to being Scoobies and stuff like that later, but not a lot of other.
Right.
Not a lot of other things. Is the next episode, was this the penultimate one?
It is. It's the penultimate episode of the season. So next episode is the conclusion of season 1.
All right. Okay. Well, I think it's starting to hit its stride a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I will say there is a reason why I don't remember season 1 all that well.
Sure.
Because it's not what I returned to.
What I find interesting is that this episode I remembered really clearly. When I got to it, I was like, oh, I know this one pretty well. Whereas I can't say that about many of the others, for the first season, that is.
Yeah.
So I do think that there was something about this one that really, to your point, I think they caught something here that they expanded on in future seasons. In terms of structure, in terms of one of the things that I think they're going to do a lot, and I think they've done this earlier, but I think this is the first episode where it really clicked, is this idea of using Cordelia in a way where she's both an antagonist and part of the team at the same time or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that really, really worked and really works in future episodes.
Yeah, I'm sitting over here thinking about you schooling me on the Invisible Man tropes, because I honestly don't care for those stories as much. Like, so in early Universal American monster movies, I don't really watch the Invisible Man one. I mean, I read the Portrait of Dorian Gray a long time ago, but it's just not the Hollow Man stuff. I don't watch that. I don't like it.
Sure.
So that's interesting to know. It's kind of a theme.
Right.
It reminds me of the theologian and most recent he's a former Archbishop of Canterbury.
Okay.
Rowan Williams.
Okay.
If you ever see him, he looks like a druid. I mean, his eyebrows are like big, and he's got long gray hair and gray beard. He's from Wales.
Nice.
And he's a hero of mine intellectually.
Okay.
Sweet person as well. He wrote a little essay for the Anglican Communion, so specifically the Anglican Episcopal Church, and it was called "The Body's Grace," and it ends up being a defense of same-sex relationships.
Okay.
Especially in a church that was going through conversations about whether that could be a faithful or for like ordained clergy and all this, that, and the other.
Sure.
I'm not here to make an argument about that whatsoever.
Sure.
But in the article, I've always been inspired by it just in general about what it teaches me about sexual unions, the body, and ultimately how it all is a means of grace. Something he often says is that he goes, we in the church, we bless sexual unions because they're risky. And so he's saying we give a context for you to practice a risky, till death do us part context. We're giving you guardrails to practice a very dangerous thing. Because he would say in true sexual intimacy, or like in the truest way that bodies are brought together, right? This is a great act of vulnerability, right? Obviously.
Sure.
But then he kind of uses some images of saying, like, when you are in that union with somebody, you are naked and perceived. And I mean that in every way imaginable. Like, all the stuff that you do in life to curate an identity or to clean yourself up or put forward facing a thing about an identity for the world to see, all that's gone because you're now with somebody who knows you for your cracks and fissures and moral weaknesses.
Sure.
And they see you.
Right.
And in that union, not only do they see you, but you see what they see. So you perceive their perception.
Right.
And to break that down into kind of this a metaphor, they hold a big mirror to your face.
Right.
By the nature of that relationship.
Sure.
And that's risky because it's hard to see ourselves. It's hard to know ourselves.
Yes.
And why it's graceful is because it opens up the opportunity for us to actually grow.
That's right.
And so then he talks about there's other forms of sex. Okay, this is not about sex, but he says there are other forms of sex that are not risky, but they don't open to vulnerability. And then he talks about violent things like it could be molestation or what have you, where in those forms, what he's talking about, I mean, it's obviously risky when you abuse anybody. That's not what we're not talking about risky in that way. We're talking about acts where one person is treating another person as an impulse mechanism, a scratch for an itch. Right. And in times like that, whether that's just lusting from afar or doing something much more nefarious, what you're doing, you are not in any way being perceived. Or if you are being perceived, but you're not perceiving back. You are just acting upon.
Right.
So you are not receiving back.
Sure.
All that you really are.
Right.
And so you hide that just to fulfill whatever impulse you want. And it gets really dark. I'm not trying to go down all those roads, but whenever I think about that how risky it is to truly be vulnerable with another person, a partner, and to be seen and to see back, I think about all the ways that even in a marriage situation where someone's made the promises, they love each other, all the ways we still try to not see ourselves. We try to hide from each other sometimes because we don't want to be confronted with ourselves sometimes.
Right.
And that really has been a profound lesson to me that I keep learning in my life. And that's how this kind of metaphor, I think, can go even deeper. Yeah. To see that if we don't have each other to show us who we are. And I would say that in relationships there are always grades of intimacy. So that sexual union he's talking about is supposed to be the most intense intimacies, but friendships, and they work out to acquaintances and all this all the way out. I mean, there are grades of intimacy that all in their own way, if we look at them correctly and with grace, hold up mirrors to us.
Sure.
And by looking and seeing, we should
Right.
at times be confronted with change.
Absolutely.
So that makes a lot of sense to me, that the Invisible Man trope or whatever would go that direction of making, I guess, left to my own devices, not having to see myself metaphorically or in a real palpable way.
Sure.
Would that deteriorate my sense of self?
Sure.
To the point where, I mean, I don't know what I then am, but
That's, I've known that was a trope, but until you just now said that, I don't know that I understood why it was a trope. And I think that is outstanding.
it was possible that's a connection. But but can you imagine what it would be? People do that. Like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And usually people say like flight or invisibility. And when you say it's invisibility, everybody goes, I know, because you would do naughty things. That's the joke. Sure. And it's like, well, what would it mean if I could just be invisible? Or what would it mean about what I am now, but what would it make me be?
Right.
Would it deteriorate my morality?
Sure. There was an Invisible Man TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel around the same time as Buffy, and it was terrible because that dude was super heroic. Like, there was never any
drama. But I mean, think about how hard it would be to be a self. I mean, you're not disembodied,
right?
So I don't believe we can. I think one of the problems with AI right now is that we're leaning into the concept of knowledge without the embodied self. There's no spatiality.
Sure.
It's just algorithmic directions. But to say where you are in space is not a possible thing.
Right.
So there is things that there's a knowledge that comes through embodiment. So you're not disembodied, but for all intents and purposes, or in some ways, you socially are disembodied if you can't be seen. So what does that? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Sure.
Because that could be a pretty profound reflection for us, I think. What would break down? I mean, certainly to not be seen. I mean, obviously there are people who have impairments of vision, but you can still be in community. But what would it mean to never be seen? You have to work very hard to be seen.
Right.
There would be more in your way of belonging into a community. Yeah. Well, the part of it that gives you power we know often corrupts, right? So I'm sure it would be at least a grave temptation.
Sure.
Anyway, well, that's wonderful. Not wonderful. That's interesting.
No, very, very interesting. All right. So next episode, we get to the season finale. We're gonna see what happens with the Master.
The Master. I guess he's gonna come back. Let's see, what episode is that?
Episode 12. I think it's called Prophecy Girl.
Oh, is it Prophecy Girl? I just referenced that. Okay, let me just... I'm just going to make sure Prophecy Girl's right. But that aired on June 2nd, 1997.
1997.
Yes.
That is insane.
It is.